This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading is by Graham Redman. The Chronicles of Clovis. Short Stories by Saki. The Remoulding of Groby Lington. A man is known by the company he keeps. In the morning room of his sister-in-law's house, Groby Lington fidgeted away the passing minutes with the demure restlessness of advanced middle age. About a quarter of an hour would have to elapse before it would be time to say his good-byes and make his way across the village green to the station with a selected escort of nephews and nieces. He was a good-natured, kindly dispositioned man, and in theory he was delighted to pay periodical visits to the wife and children of his dead brother William. In practice he infinitely preferred the comfort and seclusion of his own house and garden, and the companionship of his books and his parrot, to these rather meaningless and tiresome incursions into a family circle with which he had little in common. It was not so much the spur of his own conscience that drove him to make the occasional short journey by rail to visit his relatives, as an obedient concession to the more insistent but vicarious conscience of his brother, Colonel John, who was apt to accuse him of neglecting poor old William's family. Groby usually forgot or ignored the existence of his neighbour kinsfolk until such time as he was threatened with a visit from the Colonel, when he would put matters straight by a hurried pilgrimage across the few miles of intervening country to renew his acquaintance with the young people and assume a kindly, if rather forced, interest in the well-being of his sister-in-law. On this occasion he had cut matters so fine between the timing of his exculpatory visit and the coming of Colonel John that he would scarcely be home before the latter was due to arrive. Anyhow, Groby had got it over, and 6 or 7 months might decently elapse before he need again sacrifice his comforts and inclinations on the altar of family sociability. He was inclined to be distinctly cheerful as he hopped about the room, picking up first one object, then another, and subjecting each to a brief bird-like scrutiny. Presently his cheerful listlessness changed sharply to an attitude of vexed attention. In a scrap-book of drawings and caricatures belonging to one of his nephews, he had come across an unkindly clever sketch of himself and his parrot, solemnly confronting each other in postures of ridiculous gravity and repose, and bearing a likeness to one another that the artist had done his utmost to accentuate. After the first flush of annoyance had passed away, Groby laughed good-naturedly, and admitted to himself the cleverness of the drawing. Then the feeling of resentment repossessed him. Resentment not against the caricaturist who had embodied the idea in pen and ink, but against the possible truth that the idea represented. Was it really the case that people grew in time to resemble the animals they kept as pets, and had he unconsciously become more and more like the comically solemn bird that was his constant companion? Groby was unusually silent as he walked to the train with his escort of chattering nephews and nieces, and during the short railway journey his mind was more and more possessed with an introspective conviction that he had gradually settled down into a sort of parrot-like existence. What, after all, did his daily routine amount to but a sedate meandering and pecking and perching in his garden, among his fruit trees, in his wicker chair on the lawn, or by the fireside in his library? And what was the sum total of his conversation with chance-encountered neighbours? "Quite a spring day, isn't it? It looks as though we should have some rain. Glad to see you about again. You must take care of yourself. How the young folks shoot up, don't they? Strings of stupid, inevitable, perfunctory remarks came to his mind, remarks that were certainly not the mental exchange of human intelligences, but mere empty parrot talk. One might really just as well salute one's acquaintances with "Pretty Polly," "Puss, puss, meow." Groby began to fume against the picture of himself as a foolish feathered fowl, which his nephew's sketch had first suggested, and which his own accusing imagination was filling in with such unflattering detail. "I'll give the beastly bird away," he said resentfully, though he knew at the same time that he would do no such thing. It would look so absurd after all the years that he had kept the parrot and made much of it, suddenly to try and find it a new home. "Has my brother arrived?" he asked of the stable boy, who had come with the pony carriage to meet him. "Yes, sir, came down by the 2:15. Your parrot's dead." The boy made the latter announcement with the relish which his class finds in proclaiming a catastrophe. "My parrot dead?" said Groby. "What caused its death?" "The ape," said the boy briefly. "The ape?" queried Groby. "Whatever's that?" "The ape what the Colonel brought down with him," came the rather alarming answer. "Do you mean to say my brother is ill?" asked Groby. "Is it something infectious?" "The Colonel's so well as ever he was," said the boy, and as no further explanation was forthcoming, Groby had to possess himself in mystified patience till he reached home. His brother was waiting for him at the hall door. "Have you heard about the parrot?" he asked at once. "'Pon my soul, I'm awfully sorry. The moment he saw the monkey I'd brought down as a surprise for you, he squawked out, 'Rats to you, sir!' and the blessed monkey made one spring at him, got him by the neck, and whirled him round like a rattle. He was as dead as mutton by the time I'd got him out of the little beggar's paws. Always been such a friendly little beast, the monkey has. Should never have thought he had got it in him to see red like that. Can't tell you how sorry I feel about it. And now, of course, you'll hate the sight of the monkey." "Not at all," said Groby sincerely. A few hours earlier the tragic end which had befallen his parrot would have presented itself to him as a calamity. Now it arrived almost as a polite attention on the part of the fates. "The bird was getting old, you know," he went on in explanation of his obvious lack of decent regret at the loss of his pet. "I was really beginning to wonder if it was an unmixed kindness to let him go on living till he succumbed to old age. What a charming little monkey," he added when he was introduced to the culprit. The newcomer was a small, long-tailed monkey from the Western Hemisphere, with a gentle, half-shy, half-trusting manner that instantly captured Groby's confidence. A student of simian character might have seen in the fitful red light in its eyes some indication of the underlying temper which the parrot had so rashly put to the test, with such dramatic consequences for itself. The servants, who had come to regard the defunct bird as a regular member of the household, and one who gave really very little trouble, were scandalized to find his bloodthirsty aggressor installed in his place as an honoured domestic pet. "A nasty heathen ape, what don't never say nothing sensible and cheerful, same as poor Polly did," was the unfavourable verdict of the kitchen quarters. One Sunday morning, some 12 or 14 months after the visit of Colonel John and the parrot tragedy, Miss Wepley sat decorously in her pew in the parish church, immediately in front of that occupied by Groby Lington. She was, comparatively speaking, a newcomer in the neighbourhood, and was not personally acquainted with her fellow worshipper in the seat behind, but for the past 2 years the Sunday morning service had brought them regularly within each